No big splashes, but the Chiefs have made some under-the-radar moves in free agency. The most recent is the signing of quarterback Ta'amu Jordan, who was off to a great start with the St. Louis Battlehawks of the XFL before that season shut down. Chiefs beat writer Herbie Teope breaks down the signing and other moves made by the Chiefs on SportsBeat KC, the Star's daily sports podcast. It's Tuesday, March 24th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. We also chat about what might be in store for the Super Bowl champions, how they're having to make some moves on a budget because of limited cap space for now, and what else has happened in the AFC West. A lot of interesting moves made by the Chiefs' rivals. So here we go with Herbie Teope. All right, Herbie, I did my duty this morning and filled out the census. Have you filled out your census yet?
Hey, I did it when they first came out, man. You're behind the power curve, man.
I guess I am. I had an April 1st deadline. Come on. Hey, but it's an American thing. You know, America, it's your duty to fill out the census, get it sent in. You know, it takes 1 minute every 10 years to get this done. So get it done if you haven't gotten it done.
That's right. And for people who are wondering, the .gov domain is not spam. That's not spam. So,
right.
Yeah, it is legit.
That's right. All right. So, Herbie, it's been a while since you and I talked Chiefs, and there has been some moves. The Chiefs were not a very active team in the first few days of free agency, but the pace has picked up a little bit, and they made some headlines on Monday, late in the afternoon, picking up a quarterback of all things, Jordan Ta'amu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I went on YouTube to get some hints how to pronounce his name, looking at Ole Miss and St. Louis Riverhawks tapes, and it was pronounced differently each time. So I hope Jordan Ta'amu, with that apostrophe in there, you got to pause, I think. But he's Hawaiian, right?
Correct,
From Pearl
correct.
City, Hawaii. And
Correct.
tell us more about him. What do you know, and why is he a member of the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, most teams will carry 4 quarterbacks if there is a training camp. Most teams will carry 4 quarterbacks, and that's the reason why he's on the roster. He's not there to challenge Patrick Mahomes or Chad Henne for playing time. If anything, he's going to push Kyle Shermer, and that's the only reason why he's here. He's essentially what most people would call a camp body, and it allows the Chiefs to get a closer look at him because maybe he is someone that you do want to stash on the practice squad because don't forget, with the new CBA, the active roster has been pushed up to 55, and your game day rosters have now gone up by 2 as well. So you can have 3 quarterbacks active. And so it makes sense to bring in a guy like him. You know, most teams, when they do go through repetitions at training camp, they will go through all the way down to the 4th team. So you got to have some fresh arms out there. And that's basically what he is.
He's an interesting guy. 2 years at Ole Miss. In 2 seasons, he finished his college career as the number 6 on the career passing leader charts for the Rebels. So he gets undrafted out of Ole Miss, but signs with the Houston Texans. Spent training camp with the Texans last year, but wasn't kept. So he plays in the XFL, the first-year league, with the what did I call them? The Riverhawks. I think they're the Battlehawks. St. Louis.
Correct.
Apologize to all of our friends in St. Louis for mispronouncing or misidentifying your team. I know that there was a lot of interest in the Battlehawks, and they were drawing some great crowds when the league decided to fold its tent this year. But Ta'amu was leading the XFL in completion percentage, 72%. Through 5 games, had thrown 5 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. He had rushed 41 times for 217 yards, and the Battlehawks were 3-2 before shutting it down. He's 6'3", 214, so got some size to him. So he, like you said, he's basically battling Kyle Shermer for number 3, and this is the Chiefs were in the market for a quarterback when they decided not to bring Matt Moore back. Is that right?
That's pretty much it. And you nailed it on the head. And the key thing here is, just like last year's AAF, the Alliance American or the American Alliance Football League, these guys had the opportunity to get tape. And so that was essential for a guy like him and even some of these other players that you're seeing signing from the XFL with NFL teams. Now they have live game action tape, not just in college, but against other professional players. So that was essential for any team making that evaluation, whether they're going to sign one of these players out of the XFL. So what you have in him right now is, once again, is someone who will push Kyle Shermer and potentially land on the practice squad.
Okay. All right. So he's not the only Chief that or the only player the Chiefs have signed. There've been a few more. Let's go down because we haven't talked about Mike Remmers, the offensive lineman, 31 years old, and started right tackle for the Giants last year. Previous year, he was with Minnesota, where he started at right guard. So versatile offensive lineman. Sounds like he is basically a Stefan Wisniewski replacement.
Yeah, and here's the key thing here. Wisniewski, and I know from sources that the Chiefs really wanted to bring Stefan Wisniewski back, but unfortunately they just don't have any cap space. So for anyone out there wondering why the Chiefs have been standing on the sidelines, because they didn't really get involved until Friday or mostly over the weekend, is because they don't have any cap space. The NFLPA sent out an internal memo Monday, and the Chiefs have the lowest or the least amount of cap space around the NFL. They're sitting on $555,000 worth of cap space, and they just don't have any money to make any moves. But they did throw their name in the hat for Andres Pete, a two-time Pro Bowl guard. That I do know. The source told me that the Chiefs were in the hunt for him before he eventually re-signed with the New Orleans Saints. But Remmers right now is kind of like he's a versatile guy who can play guard and tackle. So he's your swing tackle, just like Andres Pete. Had they landed him, if they had the money and had they landed him, he's a guy that could have swung out to left tackle as well. But you need these versatile pieces, and most people who follow the Chiefs, and as you know, Blair, from covering them, Andy Reid, offensive line coach Andy Heck, they love these interchangeable parts who can play swing positions. Not necessarily center, but those guards and tackles, which are always critical because players always get injured in the NFL season. There's no ands if buts about it. So Remmers is that guy right now. He'll battle with Andrew Wiley. Don't forget, and this is the name that a lot of people always tend to forget, Martinez Rankin, who landed on injured reserve last year, played a lot of guard when Wiley was hurt. So, it's building up for a lot of camp battles here, and the Chiefs are all about building competition and may the best player win.
Right. It seems like with the Chiefs, only Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher are, just set in stone at their positions. Because even Laurent Duvernay-Tardif is somebody that we've talked about as a potential departure for the Chiefs because of his contract, and they do like the interchangeable parts in the middle of that offensive line. Talk about another newcomer, Antonio Hamilton, a cornerback. He's an interesting guy. Look, 6 feet tall, 195, played at South Carolina State, also played with the New York Giants the last 2 seasons, 29 games with the Giants, 2 starts. He has appeared in 41 NFL games in his career. He's a gunner on the special teams. And what's been funny about him is he's already been interacting on Twitter with fans. And there's a picture of him on his Twitter account with a Chiefs jersey wearing number 20, which was Morris Claiborne's number. Still is Morris Claiborne's number, as far as I know. He's still with the Chiefs. But was this a move to for some cornerback depth with Kendall Fuller moving on?
No, this is more because he's known more for special teams. And the Chiefs lost safety Jordan Lucas, to the Chicago Bears, who signed a 1-year deal in free agency. Jordan Lucas was a core special teams contributor. He had 247 snaps last season, which ranked, I think, the 6th most on the Chiefs. So when you lose a core special teams contributor, you need to bring in another guy. I don't think they're going to count on Antonio Hamilton to play defense. To your point about Morris Claiborne, he's currently an unrestricted free agent, and the Chiefs haven't brought him back as well. So, you need the depth back there on special teams, as well as guys who can potentially contribute at the cornerback position. The Chiefs have a massive hole at cornerback right now. Shavarius Ward is right now the only one who started last year. Bashaud Breeland's a free agent. Just mentioned Claiborne's a free agent. Fuller signed with the Washington Redskins. So you need another cornerback here. But again, they don't have any money to spend. So what the logical scenario, how they're going to address it, is through the draft, which is still scheduled to start April the 23rd through the 26th. And we know at the Combine, they talk to a lot of the top cornerback prospects with formal interviews. So cornerback is definitely on their menu, but because they're so cap-strapped right now, that's probably where they're going to address it.
Okay, and Keith Reeser's another one of those unrestricted free agent corners that that has been in a Chiefs uniform. And you mentioned Jordan Lucas. That was another name I was going to bring up. Signed with the Bears, as you said. He had spent his career with the Chiefs, 49 games, four starts in 2018. He actually started a playoff game for the Chiefs against the Colts. But as you said, special teams guy mostly, and he's got one interception in his career, and I remember it. It was against Jacksonville, home game against the Jaguars back 2-3 years ago. I think it was the game where Nick Foles, I can't remember exactly, but anyway, he returned it about 50 yards and made a nice play on it. So I think the Bears see that as, look, we've got a guy with a Super Bowl ring coming in. I wouldn't be shocked if he started in Chicago next year. We'll have to see about that. But you touched on it, and I want to get into more of this. All of these guys, Remmers and Hamilton and Ta'amu, these are signings on the cheap, aren't they? I mean, this is all about who the Chiefs,
correct?
Right, who the Chiefs can afford to sign right now.
And we're not looking at people who are expected to start. And so when you look across the board at the National Football League, all the free agent spendings, most of these players who signed lucrative contracts they're starting. Had the Chiefs landed Andrews Pete, he would have been expected to start from day one. Because we're talking about a 2-time Pro Bowler. But Remmers, a career backup, he has played in a lot of games. But I don't expect him, short of him, he's not handed the starting job, I should say. Let me put it that way, because he has started a lot of games in the NFL. But he's not. Right. It's not going to be handed to him. He's going to be expected to battle. The same thing with Hamilton. He's not going to be expected to start because he's you've got some studs back there already in the defensive secondary, and I just don't see him starting opposite Ward. I think they're really going to address that position in the draft.
And we do have a sense that the Chiefs are going to work hard to try to get Bashaud Breeland back. Don't you have that sense?
I do have that sense, and there's some things I'm hearing that I can't report right now, but it boils down to money. With all these players that the Chiefs that makes sense to bring back, they just don't have the cap space right now. Mike Pennell is a guy who makes perfect sense to bring back, but they don't have the cap space. Breeland, a perfect guy, but they don't have the cap space. And Breeland had turned in a contract year last year. He turned in a pretty darn good season, and I just can't see him agreeing to play for the league minimum. And the same thing with Wisniewski. Wisniewski wasn't going to come back here on a league minimum. You look at the contract he signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You look at that, you're like, it looked affordable, but the Chiefs just couldn't afford that.
Right. But look, the Chiefs are going to end up with some cap space with most likely with what happens with Sammy Watkins, either a restructure or just parting ways with Sammy Watkins. Do you think this will happen? Could this happen this week? Could it happen, pretty soon?
I don't want to put a timeline on it, but I do know that they approached him. I mentioned this the last time we talked. I do know that they approached him at the Combine with a restructure offer, and then it's clearly on Watkins' side. How much is he willing to take a pay cut? And it's going to go back and forth. The beauty of all this right now is because the league and with the coronavirus that has affected not just the U.S., but the world, it's kind of like put sports kind of like at a standstill, so to speak. It's a lot of things are being pushed back. We don't know if the offseason workout program is going to start on time, which I would be stunned if it did. We don't know if there's going to be training camps. The Olympics, for crying out loud, was canceled until
just 2021.
Today. So we just don't know. There's so much unknown right now out there. Will he do it today, tomorrow? Could it happen? Absolutely, it could happen. Will it happen? Remains to be seen. I just think, the Chiefs right now, they have to make moves. And the reason I say that is because as of today, they have 63 players on the offseason roster. Teams are allowed to have 90. They only have 5 draft picks. So they're going to have to start making some moves here to bring people in.
Yeah, and they need to free up some cap space to do that. So because heck, they're going to need what, $4.7 million just to if they just stick with the 5, right, for the draft, five draft picks.
Yep.
So, okay, hey, so I wanted to. While I have you here, it's so rare that you and I talk these days, Herbie, because you are constantly working the phones and talking to agents and trying to get the news on Chiefs free agents, and also you're plugged into the NFL as well. I wanted to talk to you about some moves that teams in the AFC West have made that I find really interesting. So we're gonna take the 3 other teams in the AFC West. I'm going to bring up some names of players that have been acquired by the Broncos, Raiders, and Chargers. I just want to get a quick thought from you on these guys and what you think they're going to bring to their new team, starting with the Denver Broncos signing Melvin Gordon from obviously the former Chargers running back, signed a 2-year deal. This one puzzled me a bit. I'm a big Philip Lindsay fan with Denver. Why would the Broncos have gone out and signed Melvin Gordon?
Because the teams around the National Football League believe in two running back attacks. It's very rare when you look across the league right now who has just one guy. Even when Gordon was with the Los Angeles Chargers, it was a 2-back attack. You had Austin Eckler there and you had Melvin Gordon. You look around some of the top rushing teams in the NFL, there's 2 running backs there. Down in New Orleans, you had Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. And then when Ingram left, you had Kamara and Latavius Murray. It's just the way it is. The days of Adrian Peterson being the bell cow, those days are gone. And it makes perfect sense for teams to have 2 running backs. If Andy Reid had his way, there would be another reliable option next to Damian Williams, because Reid's history shows he likes 2 running back attacks.
I think it also takes a little bit of pressure off of Drew Lock. Look, that offensive line needs to improve at Denver, but when you have a couple of running backs now, a couple of weapons in the backfield, it doesn't have to be Drew Lock beating you with his arm all afternoon. So Gordon, I think he's been a terrific running back, and I've always been a big Philip Lindsay fan. Another player that they acquired, this one through a trade, was AJ Bouye from Jacksonville. They got a 4th-round pick for him. I've always liked this guy as well, and I think the Broncos saw that they lost Chris Harris to the Chargers of all teams, stayed in the division, and I think AJ Bouye brings maybe some leadership qualities that they lost with Chris Harris.
Well, that's the key thing there. And he's a younger version of Chris Harris. Harris is now, in his 10th year?
Yeah.
A.J. Bouye is a guy who a couple of years ago was just a Pro Bowler cornerback with the Houston Texans. He was a shutdown corner. He's versatile. He can play inside. He can play outside. And then when I look at the AFC West, and I know you're going to look at, I know you wanted to go team by team, but when I look at the AFC West as a whole, it seems like an arms race. They know what the Chiefs are going to do, and a lot of these teams, including, I love what the Chargers did. They don't have a quarterback right now, but I love what they did with their team as well, because they're stocking up. The Raiders are stocking up. The Broncos are stocking up, and it's an arms race against the Kansas City Chiefs, who have dominated the AFC West for so many years now.
I think that's a great point. I think what we're seeing in the AFC West is what we've seen in the AFC East for so long. Teams building rosters to try to compete with the Patriots there, and now in our world trying to compete with the Chiefs. And in that vein, look what the Raiders did, signing Marcus Mariota to, I think, compete with Derek Carr. I look, it's still Carr's job to lose, but I think it's possible he could lose it to Marcus Mariota, brought him in on a 2-year deal. And the other Raider signing that I thought was interesting, Jason Witten, bringing him in with Darren Waller there. I think an excellent tight end, but they bring in Jason Witten. And you mentioned earlier the Chiefs didn't bring in anybody who we expect to just jump right into the starting lineup, but the Raiders brought in 2 or 3 defensive guys who might end up being, who are going to you bring them in to start, guys like Corey Littleton and Malik Collins. So Raiders really look like they're trying to ramp it up. At first year in a new state, new town, a new stadium as well.
Yeah, the other guys you didn't mention there, Eli Apple, their cornerback.
Yeah,
he's going to be expected to start right away, former first-round draft pick. I got to cover him down in New Orleans, too. He had his moments last year in the contract year, and then he slipped. But he's a guy that highly touted coming out of Ohio State. There's something about those Ohio State cornerbacks. Corey Littleton, he's going to be a plug-and-play option, and Littleton's strength is he can cover. He's not necessarily a guy that you're always going to keep at the line of scrimmage. He can also drop back in coverage. Malik Collins, you mentioned. I think Marcus Mariota, that signing there is probably to appease John Gruden's man crush on him. If you remember a couple of years ago, Gruden, when he was with ESPN, used to do that quarterback camp. And I remember watching that when he had Mariota as a quarterback he was spotlighting, and it seemed like he was in love with the guy. So that's basically what that is. And he's going to push Derek Carr. Jason Witten, as you mentioned, I don't know if he's going to be an impact kind of guy, especially with Waller there, but he's certainly going to be able to provide veteran leadership, veteran mentorship, and you always need that on the team.
Yeah. Okay. And then also moving into the new stadium this year, the Chargers, you mentioned them earlier. I love that they brought back Eckler. He's just an outstanding player, and Hunter Henry as well, the tight end, and then signing Chris Harris, veteran guy. And talented. I think a lot of people who have followed football in this area knew Chris Harris from his days as a Kansas Jayhawk, were thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great if he could come to Kansas City, but not to be. He's with the Chargers, stays in the division. I agree with you. I look at the Chargers' potential starting lineup and like a lot of things that I see, except quarterback.
Correct.
And they're going to have to either make a move in the draft or bring in someone that Tyrod Taylor can mentor for a season. But I'd look at the Chargers and think they're in a win now mode, except they don't have the quarterback.
The thing that really impresses me that kind of like gives a strong hint that they are going to use the draft on a quarterback is what they did on the offensive line. They picked up Brian Beluga, and Trey Turner. We're talking about an offensive tackle and an offensive guard, two battle-tested offensive linemen. Beluga obviously up there in Green Bay blocking for Aaron Rodgers, and then Turner blocking for Cam Newton in Carolina. So that you've got two guys that really is an upgrade to the offensive line, and that kind of like tells you right now that they're probably going to be looking at the draft, and they needed the pieces in place to protect a young quarterback.
I wonder if they'll make the move for Tua. I wonder if it'll come down to the Chargers and Dolphins in a competition for Tua, assuming Joe Burrow goes to the Bengals.
Yeah. That's the wild card there. I think the Chargers right now, they need a splash quarterback because they're going into a new stadium and it's Los Angeles and they're competing against the Rams. You can't have some retread quarterback. I don't think Jameis Winston's going to do it for the Chargers. I just don't. I think, the fact that they were in the running for Tom Brady tells you all you need to know. They need a big name quarterback, a high draft prospect type quarterback that's going to inject life and energy and excitement into their fan base.
Yeah, I agree. And it'll be interesting to see how the news unfolds with that team over the next few weeks. What else is going on, Herbie? What should we expect this week and in the near future when it comes to the Chiefs? And what moves are left to be made out there from an NFL standpoint? There's still a couple of quarterbacks looking for a home right now. Yeah,
there's quite a few quarterbacks still waiting on a home. We mentioned Jameis Winston. Cam Newton's going to eventually hit the market here once the Panthers decide they can't trade him. So you've got some good quarterbacks out there. Former first-round draft picks. That's what's so crazy about this past free agency period. We didn't even touch on Phillip Rivers. Rivers going to the Indianapolis Colts now. It's going to be very strange to see Brady in the Buccaneers uniform and very strange to see Rivers in the Colts uniform. But, outside of that, and the Chiefs can't get involved in any of those big signings again. It's because of the lack of cap space. If anything, what do we expect from the Chiefs here? I would anticipate some roster moves to clear up some space because they need it. They desperately need cap space. And I remember talking to Brett Veach at the Combine where he says, hey, we're going to have to get creative. And, they got creative in a way with restructuring Frank Clark's base salary into a signing bonus. They're going to need to do more than, a lot more of that. Restructuring Sammy Watkins' contract has to be at the top of the list. It's either you do that or you just outright cut him because you need the space, man.
Yep, exactly. So, all right. So my suggestion is to stay tuned to Herbie Teope and his coverage of the Chiefs. Nobody knows this team better than Herbie, and we will be, as we're all shut in these days. What else? What's better to take your mind off of the events, the news events of the world, than to follow the Super Bowl champion Chiefs on kansascity.com. All right, Herbie, thanks for spending some time with us.
Hey, no problem at all, Blair. Stay safe, brother.
Yeah, you too. Hey, it's Blair. Hey, we have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners. Unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns we have to offer. And it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. For your convenience, your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. A lot of subscription services won't tell you that. They'll just sneak it on there. We just told you. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. That'll do it for today, and I appreciate you spending some time with us. Thanks to our production team of Derek Donovan, Savannah Smith, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. You can find SportsBeat KC where fine podcasts are distributed, including YouTube. And keep in mind that while most of us are homebound this week, kansascity.com coverage of the COVID-19 coronavirus is free. Keep up to date with everything going on in our part of the world by accessing kansascity.com. That'll do it for us. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode of SportsBeat KC.